Okay, so we're starting with stickers right off the bat. Alright, should maybe have there we go. Have a little music going. So so put that over there. Okay, I want both of these are G10. Okay, so it doesn't really matter. Oops. Stickers. Okay, so there are 8 of them here. And I'm putting up against here. No, I have tweezers somewhere. And as usual, a sticker is going to sticker. There we go. think it went on a little lopsided, but okay. There we go. Now, 3 more stickers just for this thing. Then 4 more for the other. There we go. Okay. There we are. Okay, G214. It's going to be this one. That's as far as it goes. Brought up a click, but I didn't hear a click or feel a click. Okay, oh, wow. Okay. So this tiny little sticker. This is supposed to go okay, so there's that done. Okay, so this is saying it's supposed to be okay. I'm not gonna lie, I don't understand putting the stickers on the yellow piece. Okay. G2 13. That's this part. Okay, so that piece fell off. Let's see. Go, and there we go. I guess it doesn't matter if it doesn't go away too much, but whoop, just personally bugs me. So this goes there. Okay, G111 is going to be one of these. Okay. Oh, okay. Trying to get it to line up with the wrong holes. Should be. There it goes. Alright, G17. It's going to be this one. Put a sticker here. It's one of the number 3 stickers, of which there are 4. Is that saying to add a number 3 there or here? Okay, so I need to add 2 number 3 stickers. I don't think I can say I've done a lot of Gunpla yet, but I think everyone agrees with me that stickers are always an adventure. I know a lot of people, and I've done this myself, just paint where the stickers are supposed to go because they're that much of an adventure. Come on, I saw you pop. There we go. You gotta go in there. Oh, no. I think I need to get you a little bit more towards this edge, but too late. Alright, and these pieces should just all line up like so. Yeah, there we go. Oh no, 5 is going on a different piece that is then going in there. Okay. I was about to make a very big mistake with that. I'm just going to do a big no-no here. so it does say specific numbers. I don't think they matter a whole lot which one goes on which, but we're just gonna be safe. Oh, you are going to be fun. This is where the stickers are always just more of a pain than they're worth. Because that is probably gonna be the best I get it to go onto a curved surface. And there we go. All right. Okay, so that takes us next to this. Okay, so we're going to do this part first because it looks like it will be the sneakier part. That is this. Sorry about the state of my hands. I have psoriasis, as mentioned in the streamer tags, but I also just have a lot of scars from life. This big one here, and these are actually from a dog. It wasn't a dog attack. It was, I worked at a dog daycare. Someone brought their dog in, and the dog was not very, he was terrified of being in a group daycare. And so, when I tried to get him out of his kennel so he could go outside and whatnot, I thought he'd be like all the other dogs where, you know, once a person started interacting with them, they, I wouldn't say stop being scared, but, you know, they calm down a little bit. He instead, you know, did not calm down at all, which is fair, you know. I made the mistake of assuming he'd be like every other dog, and, you know, he wasn't. Because dogs are like people. They're, you know, individuals. That's okay, though. He was just a little guy, and he was scared was all. And I was the one who made the mistake of breaching his boundaries when I should have done a better job of respecting them. But yeah, so, you know, kind of got stories like that all over my hands and arms, but then a lot of it is also just psoriasis. which unfortunately I have very little control over, as much as I may wish otherwise. Oh, and go in evenly, and you're making it a problem. There we go. There we go. Alright, and now for you. Do you need to go in a specific way? Doesn't say you do. So I guess it's just however you fit. Probably should try to take care of that before. Oops. Could have sworn I felt something just fall off against my finger. But it doesn't look like I did. Alright, so next. Man, where did all these grease spots come from? Alright, next up is the other one. So I'm going to start here. And then we're going to add all the stickers. A little bit more pop in that than I was expecting. Sorry, I decided to do the flight unit first because I just figured smaller, being faster, but it's already been 38 minutes and I haven't even gotten halfway through this. Go. Still a little bit there. Still a little bit there, but that's better. Alright, now for these lovely 999 different stickers. These are just the same. Or I want that little lip there facing towards the top. Sorry, if you're going, wow, they have no hand control, it's because I don't. Always been kind of a little clumsy, and then arthritis kicked in, and ta-da. That gives you all the nice shakiness you see before you. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, so I finally did a Gundam first for me, which is I spent the past couple of days, you know, finishing Seed and Gundam Seed Destiny, and then watching the movie Gundam Seed Freedom, which is the new movie that released earlier this year, I think it was. I can't say I'm the biggest fan of Gundam Seed. I think a lot of it is because, it's just like I personally have a problem where it's hard for me to rewatch media because my brain starts remembering, and that's a problem. And the reason why that's a problem with Gundam Seed is because Gundam Seed was made to kind of not necessarily reboot the original Gundam show, but kind of redo it to bring it to a newer audience, which is all fine and dandy. It has keynotes that are supposed to play on to the nostalgia factor, but it's still an original story. But the problem is my brain just keeps latching on to the nostalgia, and I don't actually do well with nostalgia. I don't know why. My brain doesn't go, oh, happy hormones from the thing. It just kind of goes, okay, why are they repeating the thing? Which is again why rewatching media is hard for me. So I didn't like the nostalgia factor. And then there are some story elements I wasn't too big on, but the show is extremely popular, so people like it. So it must do a good job somewhere. It's just I'm the wrong audience. And I don't think it's a bad show. There are things I like from it. There are characters I like. you know. But then you get the problem where Gundam Seed Destiny, which is supposed to be, a sequel season, it kind of does the same thing where it just tries to repeat certain keynote events, but from the first series, not from a different Gundam show. So, then there's just that extra level of nostalgia that my brain was like, why is this happening? Why is this just, being unnecessarily repeated? And it's not that it's being unnecessarily repeated, it's just, I'm a problem. The movie, however, was actually pretty good. It still has the problem of where it's trying to redo a nostalgia plot line because it's trying to do a plot from Sea Destiny, but fast forwarded, and so there was that problem again. But it was only 2 hours versus 50 plus episodes. But yeah, they're there. They're good. There are some mobile suits I like and prefer. Really like the Gian Strom. I think is one that I liked. I kind of wish I could dip in and get the Bandai version because it's supposed to be Hilda Harkins Gian versus Agnes, and I just kind of prefer Hilda over Agnes. No, actually, Hilda getting introduced in Seed Destiny was, one of my favorite moments that I kind of had to laugh about because you have this one character, Locus Klein, who's not necessarily pacifist, but she's the more, hey, we should all be working towards peace and whatnot. And they kind of show up in the middle of a battle where they're trying to save some people and whatnot. And you know during the middle of this battle, just three people in a drop pod just kind of drop in from orbit, and everyone's like, who are these people? And Locus is like, these are three people who have decided to, fight with me because they believe in my cause. And, if you're with me, you should consider them to be an ally. And the whole time she's going on about this, they are just tearing stuff up. They're just going through, and anyone who points a gun at them is just not pointing a gun at them for long. So her speech basically amounts to basically just, oh, these three people are here because they believe in my cause, but they're also here of their own volition, so just get the hell out of their way if you want to live. It's just hilarious. And they end up making a reappearance in Seed, but they've transitioned to using completely different mech suits. In the show, they're the only three people to use DOMs that we see in the Gundam Seed series, which because it's repeating the original anime, has a lot of Xeon suits make reappearances, but completely different. They have one suit that's completely unique to them called the Jin, but after that you get the Zaku, the Goof, and the Gien and the Dom, which are repeats, but they're all completely different because they all have wings and other slight variations. I actually really like the Gion Strom from Seed, way more compared to the plain Gion that we see in the 1 Year War. One thing I wouldn't mind seeing a re-release though is the Giancelot from it's actually from Gundam Build Fighters Try, which is one of their animes that they made specifically for the purpose of selling Gunpla. But it's supposed to be a custom Gunpla kit that is based off of the Gian. And then later there's the R Gia Gia, which is, same thing, but again, custom, Gunpla that one of the characters customized. But yeah, the Gion Strom is a kit I like and wouldn't mind getting my hands on. And so are the Black Knights, which are, also suits that they're the villain suits in the movie. But, they're wholly unique and they actually look pretty cool. Although Bandai did a weird thing where 4 of the suits you see in the movie are basically the same exact mecha, but with 4 different color schemes, and they released one as a mass release kit, but then they did the other 3 as a single premium Bandai release. So you can't even just get like, oh, the color scheme you like. No, you have to go back and buy all of them, which is weird. Alright, so I need this part again. Yeah. And then I need to make sure to get all the stickers, including the one here that I missed. Yeah. I need to go back and finish my Zelda, or not Zelda, Gundam Zeta watch. I remember watching it years ago, but to be honest, I couldn't tell you a whole lot of what happened, just very vague, non-specific cliff notes. I'd be really struggling to tell you anything from its sequel series, Double Zeta, because, to be honest, I just don't really remember a whole lot of it. So I think that's next on my Gundam watch list. I can watch Zeta in English at least, which will make it easier for me to do what I usually do, which is put a show on and then multitask. Unfortunately, they never did an English dub for Double Zeta, so I don't have that option, but you know, not the biggest thing. Just means I have to pay more attention to it. Alright, so I need 2 stickers for this one, and this is going to be the last of those tiny little white strips. You go here. Okay, I think I got that in a good enough spot. I need to get a number 3 to go here. And I need to clip out the other piece. There we go. This is where my hands are working against me. think my favorite Gundam series is still probably going to be a mix between Iron Blooded Orphan and Witch from Mercury. And part of the reason why is, well, Witch from Mercury, I don't know. I just kind of like the setting and how it's, until the very end, it was kind of chill and everything. Although, if you've watched the series, it very rapidly becomes not chill. No, but it was chill, happy, campy, and fun. Very, breath of fresh air for a Gundam series. Uh, in contrast, Iron Blood Orphans is probably one of the most dark Gundam series. Uh, but both were also very open universe. Like, you kind of get told some basics of how everything exists, but, what happens in the shows aren't necessarily world breaking and such, and there's a lot more than just, oh, here's the Earth central government versus, the space colonists who are either oppressed or who are trying to oppress the Earth government. Well, I guess you still get that in Witch from Mercury, but there's a larger thing where there's a lot of corporations and a whole weird corporate government system that doesn't really get touched on a whole lot, each of them with their own agendas and trying to do their own thing. And all that happens. What was it? I think earlier today a whole new what was it, Gundam Silver Phantom was announced. I think it's a movie. It's supposed to take place around the same time Gundam Unicorn was, the same year at least. I don't think it's been specified if it's like happening the exact same time or just a little before or just a little after, but apparently the plot is this vigilante group that's trying to assassinate an Earth government politician for working with Zeon, which is a little hilarious because that's just kind of universal century. All the Earth companies are working with Zeon because Zeon had the technology but didn't have the resources to produce the technology, so everyone worked with Zeon so they could make and sell the technology. Universal Century is kind of getting crowded in my opinion. That's because a lot of it is them going back and trying to rework more and more stories into the same spots. And granted, while the whole Earth solar system is a very big place for a lot of stories to happen, you kind of get a problem where the basic themes just keep getting repeated over again. It's kind of like a Star Wars expanded universe. It ran into the problem where everything was the Skywalkers and had to involve some member of the Skywalker or Solo family. And you just didn't have a whole lot. Well, it's kind of like that, except, you have a little bit smaller setting than a whole playground, and while you're including vastly different characters, they all keep getting caught up in universe defining events, I guess would be the best way to describe that. Yep, he didn't line up. There we go. I was not expecting this to take a whole hour, so we might not actually get to Aerial. Sorry, I stopped to look at stuff. Alright, so let's see. I need this again for this part. Well, this part here is technically a no-no because no one ever recommends cutting the pieces out like this. They always recommend doing what you've seen me mostly doing, which is, you know, cutting off a big chunk and then cutting in close. And big part of that is because it places less stress on the piece, so you don't have to go in and like remove quite as much when you sit there and do stuff like this, which is, you know, filing down the stress marks from where I violently separated it from the sprue. I say violently not because, you know, I was super aggressive, but because, you know, it's producing a stress mark. The result is of violence, not necessarily that I was being violent, if that makes sense. You are just not going to go away, are you? There you go. Alright. Let's see. You were like that. And you go in like that. And then just so you're out and I don't have to worry about you. Did I get everything? 1, 2, 3 stickers. You and your sticker. So I just need you 2 pieces. And remember to file this one down, unlike what I did last time, which is I didn't file it down. And now it's in there and I can't file it down. This part. This one is not wanting to go away. We're going to do this, which thankfully I haven't had to do a whole lot. Alright. Go ahead, you go like that. Okay, now you want it like that, so you get put like that until later. So got all these black stickers that go somewhere. Did I miss some part? No, doesn't look like it. They haven't shown up somewhere. Do you have? No, you do not. Alright, so G218, that's going to be this part. Alright, let's see, I need both of these. Ooh, I just realized I used the wrong nippers for that. Let's use the nice soft ones. Oh well. Oops. would be pretty much why I meant to use the softer ones and not the ones I did. They just create less stress on the pieces. Alright, so there's that piece. Alright. So you should look like that. Go into this piece like this. Alright. There we go. Then you look like that. Connect like this. Oh, hey, Tin Cat. Thanks for the stretch. That's actually not a bad idea right now. Oh. Should actually probably get up and do a proper stretch. Actually, let me do that. I can feel my lower back just... Oh, ow. Something popped. Yeah. Probably not that hard to feel it through the screen. Let me change out my headsets real fast because this one's complaining about dying. And then I just need to tell OBS to recognize this one. Oh. Uh-oh. Oh. When I hooked this one up, it told the music to stop playing. Okay. There we go. Yeah, but hey, Tin Cat, welcome in. How you been doing? It's been a while since I streamed. This yellow piece. Nope, not those. I want these nice, soft, gentle. Yeah. Uh, yeah. I kind of think that's everyone at this moment. It's it's definitely me. I've had a I have not had a nice year so far. Let's see. Oh yeah, I definitely know that feeling. Or the past couple of months, I got like, I don't know, infections or something in my neck, and today one of them decided to pop, and it just was not pretty. On top of that, my sciatica and arthritis have been getting worse, and it's been especially fun because I my car's been stuck at a dealership since February because well, towards the end of February, someone broke into it and just completely trashed the console trying to hotwire it, or not the console, the steering. And so, it went to a dealership to get fixed up. They took forever because the insurance adjuster decided to just vanish off the face of the earth. And so then it took until May for it to finally get fixed up. And finally, the day I can go in and, it's fixed up, I can afford to pay for it and, pick it up and take it home, it gets broken into again at the dealership. And it's actually one of 16 cars. So since then, they've been fighting with mostly just getting to it, but, it's just been stuck at the dealership since then for the past month and change, waiting to get fixed on again. So yeah, I definitely know how you're feeling, and all that's just making it, you know, harder to get through. I've been out of a job since January, so money's just. Oh, that reminds me, I meant to have a donation goal up, but I did not put that up, and it's too late now, and I ain't gonna bother. Yeah, I definitely get the world is being mean and kicking you when you're down. It's just not a fun experience. Okay, alright, so you are like that, and I need to do this twice. But other than life, anything good happen? Anything noticeable or notable? Oh wow, I think this backpack's going to be done. Only took an hour and a half to do it, which is probably an hour longer than I expected to take. No. Now this sticker sheet has 8 black stickers that I have not seen instructions for yet. Oops, shaking the camera there. So that's you. This one's going to be your partner. Oh, you're in the military too, aren't you? Yeah, that's especially heinous on the body. Remember one of the guys that I joined up with, he ended up going infantry and then air assault, I think, and during a practice jump, he had, he was about 2 years in, landed bad, and it just tore apart his stomach, and he ended up getting medically discharged because of all the surgery and everything and how much damage it did. Oof, that was rough. Last time I talked to him, though, he was up in Alaska doing a travel blog, though, so it worked out for him, I think. Well, I mean, it didn't work out. I'm sure, trying to live with most of your stomach gone is a problem, but, you know. Yeah, no, most of the people I know went through the military just once they get out, they end up on some level of disability. Sorry, not trying to sound like I'm knocking the military, just, I'm aware of how rough a life it is on the human body. Hey, Vagabond, or do you prefer Vagabond or Aeon? I know I talked to you a lot on Blue Sky, but I don't think I ever asked. Yeah, we actually have not gotten to the aerial yet because we spent an hour and a half just doing the flight unit. But it's almost done, and then I think I just have the hands. Then we can actually maybe move on. Vagabond? Alright. Now I don't know if I'm saying vagabond right because I don't think I've ever heard it said before. I just read it in books. English language is weird like that. That's correct. All right. And I just have a problem where I don't know. I mean, I think I've set it up. I think anyone who's known me for more than 5 minutes, you know, can either figure it out or has heard me say I don't exactly have the most social life. I think throughout my life, most of the media I've consumed has been, you know, books or, well, books. And, you know, then I actually haven't read a lot of manga. Now that I think about it. I mean, I've read manga, just not a lot. Just very specific series. Usually I end up watching anime. But in the grand scheme of things, I've read more than I've watched, I think is what I'm trying to say. If I can figure out how words in the English language work in my 32 years of being a native English speaker. Yeah, thankfully it seems we already did your favorite part of Gunpla, though, where we applied the really tiny stickers that didn't want to go where they're supposed to. But we also have the whole aerial to go through, so I'm sure there will be more. That one little nub really doesn't want to go away. I can't wait for the day that I get a airbrush kit and I can finally do all the color correcting that I want to do. Not to mention just outright painting. Alright, so I think that is the entire flight kit, just the two hands. You know, there are these stickers and there are no instructions for them at all, anywhere. Oh, okay, those two little things are for to hold the swords. All right. That's interesting. Yeah, let's see. Number 4 stickers. Number 4 stickers. Number 1 stickers. Number 3 and number 2 stickers. Number 5 stickers. Yeah. There's just there's just 8 whole stickers not getting used. Okay. All right. Fair enough, I guess. Okay, so let's go ahead and while we're here, since it takes no time at all to make hands. Haha, get it? Make hands. Nope, come on. Here we go. Oh, this is reminding me how I have a problem with how the Iron Blade Orphan kits, you know, having the extra hands locked up in the what was it? The Mobile Suit option kits, and of course, you know how extremely rare those are to find nowadays. But you know, they have the reprints coming out, you know, the end of this month. So you think, oh, that's a golden opportunity to, like, you know, reprint all the option kits, right? No, they're only reprinting two of them. They're only reprinting option kit 1 and 7, but they're reprinting them as kits 11 and 12. And it's like, come on, seriously? Why you gotta do us like that? Wait, do I? Do I need to worry? Oh, it's kind of late now to try and figure that out. Oh. Haha. Ta-da. I have made hands. Alright. Now, for the first time in months, because I think I promised to stream a build of this back in like December, and you know, life happened. So much life. Alright, there's that. Sorry, ignore the crinkle ASMR. I'm very sorry about that. Sorry, just grabbing a drink. All right. Okay. Let's do this reasonably. Let's look at the instructions that you know what's funny? We have all these jokes about how you know, reading picture books is like the sign of lesser intelligence amongst people. I really wish I had an easier time of understanding picture books, because, I mean, look at this. Although I will say this is probably the most English I've seen in a Gundam instruction booklet. Now I'm just realizing how racist I sounded for that whole 5 seconds. Oh boy. Okay, so first they want us to start off with the head. I need A, B2, and C for that. Okay, so here's sprue A. Again, I am sorry for the crinkly plastic ASMR. It's just a unfortunate side effect of life. Although I guess I could have done this all, like, you know, before stream, like a probably reasonable person would have done. Remember, kids, do not play with sharp tools. Always make sure to safety cap them. Oh, they do that? No, I actually hadn't noticed that these instructions were in color. Yeah, they do that. Yeah, no, that is a little bit annoying. You know, the Schwartz set, it had these little things as just black pieces with stickers, and these just come like, you know, like this. Okay. So I have to put you up there on the side. So wait. Oh, wait a minute. Okay. I guess I got a reprint or something. That was a short time to have a reprint. Because, I mean, it says, you know, apply the permit score stickers, but there are no permit score stickers to apply. Wow, I gotta open up all of these sprues right off the bat. Okay, I'm just gonna turn the microphone off so y'all aren't slammed with so much ASMR. Okay, plastic's done. No, those always came like that? Huh. That's just... That is interesting. I think that's the word I'm going to go with for that. Because, like, you know, it's... You know, it says choose a sticker to place, but, you know, you already... Yeah, they're not even like stickers. They're, you know, you're choosing which solid piece you want. All right. It's a little bit different, but okay. Oh. C is this big gray sprue. There's only one sprue I don't need for building the head. All right. Okay, let's see. I need B236, which is going to be... Oh, I do not like how that piece did that. Alright. Then I need a 6 and a 29. So a 6 is this piece over here. Where'd I... Here they are. Like, where did I put my other nippers? My nice, soft ones. There we go. And then, what was it? 29, which is this piece here. Wow, these are some... Oops, sorry. Smacking the camera. I know you can't see it from that angle, but these were just some solid, chunky sprues. Holy cow. Yeah, I still need to get my hand on the... I need to get my hand on a lot of kits. It's like them doing this reprint, I think towards the end of next month, you know, it's like, oh, it's the perfect opportunity because, like, especially the build kits, Double O and Build, you know, the two kit series I think I've wanted the most and just, you know, have not been able to find at affordable prices. You know, they're both just finally dropping reprints, and it's like, I need a job. I need a job. I need my car. I need my car so I can get a job. I need a job so I can get my car. There's a hole in my bucket, dear Eliza. Yeah, exactly, Terry. Exactly. Alright. And... Oops. So what about you, There suddenly goes my ability to communicate. What about you, Vagabond? You got anything you're looking forward to? Oh, that piece just flew into the distance. Let's see. Ones I really want to get are the Exia, the Dynames, and the then the Wing Fenices that they're coming up. The Bolanoic salmon? Saman? I don't know if I'm saying that right. You know, I can't tell what's supposed to be the front and the back for this, so I'm just going to... Oh, Yeah, no, that's saying that's the fry and the front's that way. Okay, so I guessed right. Miracle of that. Okay, hold on. I gotta look this one up because I don't think I even know which kit you're talking about. Boanoic Salmon. Oh. Oh, wow! That's from Zeta? That's one of the reasons why I need to go back and actually watch Zeta. Holy cow. It reminds me of, what was it? The, Devastator from Transformers. You know, the big, giant green and purple Decepticon combiner. Oh, holy cow. That is... Okay, hold on. I might need to show this. Oh. Okay, let's see. There we go. Oh no! Just look at it. I can understand why you love it. It's just, yeah, you weren't kidding about it. I think really the color hurts it more than, like, you know, what it is. Oh, that is that is certainly an image. Oh. Yeah, no, I mean it's. I mean, like, seriously, looking at it, I don't think it's a bad looking. That piece just flew off into oblivion. I don't think it's a bad looking mech. It's just the color on it. Mega Man X villain. What Mega Man X villain would that be? Yeah, yeah, I think I can see that. Okay. Say you're trying to, like, follow this while still looking at the picture, and it's like, no, this is just not fitting in. So, that piece at the base, that the little nub mark at the base of the head is just going to have to live there. Oh boy. Yeah, no, that one piece that bent the way it did when I cut it kind of did some serious harm there, but thankfully this is all white, so it kind of blends in. I feel like white Gunpla is forgiving and that, you know, it's not too bad about that. But, yeah, no, it was kind of funny because I was thinking the other day, not too long ago, you know, like, the regular Gion is just ugly as all get out. I realize I'm trying to put these pieces together the wrong way. But I really like the R Gia and the Gion Strom from, you know, the new movie they did. And it's almost because they're almost entirely different suits. You know, the only relation they have is the similar head with that little knight's piece. Okay, so I need C24 and the only piece on the D sprue. I feel like making a joke that's the only D that will ever be in this Gundam. Because I am a horrible person. Come on. Alright. Since that sprue's gone and done away with, we can just throw it in the box. Okay, okay, so I need the other piece first. Oh! Sorry, my neck just popped. C24, C24, there you are. Now I'm trying to remember what my first kit was that I built, but that was about 5 years ago. I think it was the Wing Zero. It's either the Wing Zero or the Love Phantom. I'm not quite sure the specifics there. So if I remember right, I built those two, and then I built the frame Shiden I got from Iron Blooded Orphans. And then COVID happened. Then there were the hurricanes that happened in Louisiana, and then my computer died at the time. And then I would have gotten caught up, whoops, you know, moving. And then I think it was only last year that I finally decided to go, hey, let's, you know, make all this stuff. Or, you know, start making all this stuff again. How's this going? Okay, you go like that. That is a really intricate head set up. There, got those words out. Hold on. I gotta look up how it looked with the permit score, because that's what I want to use. Aerial permit score, not 6. Of course, everyone's just showing permit score 6. Oops, sorry. The earbuds I had put in are extremely sensitive, and they like I like to pause as soon as I accidentally touch them. Okay, Gundam Aerial. honestly. Well, the box still shows green eyes with a permit score, so I'm going with green eyes. It's really weird they give you choices like that. When would have Ariel had red eyes? I guess when it got shut down? No, when the Michaelis and the Bugor Pentes, first shut it down with the what was it? I think it was called the vaccine thing. Why are they asking me to put green sticker? Ask me to put green stickers on a green block just so it's green shiny. Skullbutt is a scrap concept. Oh, so it might have been like the original idea for when Prospera took it over instead of having the rebuild. That can make sense. I could see that being the original idea. Oh, original idea was of having an evil version of the Ariel. Okay, so it didn't have red eyes, so at least I know I'm not. At least I know I'm remembering properly. Sometimes you misremember one thing wrong, and it's like, oh, hey, you question the rest of reality for the rest of your life. Eh, come on, get off. I like how these stickers will stick to everything but what they need to stick to. Oh, come on. Don't do that. Just don't do that either. Come on. I just remembered I have that metallic green Gundam marker, so I don't have to fight with this, but I'm already 2/3 of the way done, so why not finish? I don't think I've ever really listened to playlists before, but the breakup saxophone was certainly something. Okay. Then I need the face. It's now giving me flashbacks to Transformers 2. Give me your face. Because apparently the movie version of Optimus Prime just really needs to work things out with a therapist. There we go. Ugh, my neck is starting to cramp up. Yeah, I kind of like how when I was a kid, it's like, oh, hey, Michael Bay trans. I say a kid, you know, those movies came out when I was in high school. Or at least the first of them did. I think, like I said earlier, at least the white plastic is a little bit forgiving on these nub marks. Oh, the Lands of Soul. That's still a kit I need to get. Where'd this head go? Oh, it's right here. Still need to get that. I need to get the aerial rebuild and the Caliburn, as well as the Leaf Riff. And then I can start figuring out how to make my I still need to do my custom colored Kshatriya, but I don't like how the paint went onto one of the pieces, so I need to get some stripper in so I can strip the paint from that piece and then, you know, properly paint it. Okay, so I need B226. This part here that's already broken free from the stress. Now, every time I try to cut one of these pieces out, I try to do it where it could be, you know, inside of the camera, but because of the angle, the sprue keeps coming up and smacking the camera in the face. So this piece goes here. There you go. There you go. Aha. You know, I still say it. I think like Gundam 00 was the first Gundam I ever saw, and I really loved the Exia and the Dynames and the what was the one that came after Dynames? The Cheridon, I think. And you know, but then it's like I think I went all the way until Iron-Blooded Orphans came out before I, you know, saw another Gundam ever again, and that was the one that made me go like, oh, okay, I like this whole universe now. But I really do like the Aerial, which is not like the hottest take to ever exist, but you know. Yeah. That's a little, that's a funky little piece right there. That little A28. Let's see. I think one thing that I like that isn't a Gundam. Well, the Dewanza Soul. The Dewanza is, you know, that's a little chunky boy that I like a lot. I think another one that I like that's more of a run suit is the Ifrit Schneed from Unicorn. Yeah, I think I saw episodes of Wing when I was a kid, but like the thing is, the only time I saw Tanami was when I was visiting my grandparents who lived in Georgia. So, you know, that was usually only like a couple of times a year because my parents were divorced. So it'd be like, oh, when it was my dad's holiday, basically, you know, we'd go and visit them up there. And, you know, they had satellite because they lived in the middle of nowhere and it was kind of needed for everything because he was like, my grandfather was a dentist. So I think I remember seeing episodes of Wing as a kid, but I didn't really watch the whole show until, you know, I think 5 years ago when I started like trying to collect Gunpla for the first time and was really like into trying to watch everything. I like Wing though. I think the Gundam Wing is one of my favorite kits. I know I definitely want to get uh, the two Fenice and the Wing Zero Hano kit that's coming out, are coming out on reprint. I do have the what was it? The Sky Wing Zero. That's the what was it? The recolor from Battlelog. Oh wow! I got put that tiny sticker on that tiny piece. That is that is going to be an adventure, and I also realizing how many just shiny silver pieces there are, and I don't think I like that. Oops. Okay, there we go. Now for the fine motor control that I no longer possess. This is gonna be fun. Yeah. I think for Gundam Wing, who is it? Duo. Duo makes the show, though. I like the Wing, but Duo makes the show. I think Duo is everyone's favorite from Gundam Wing, at least for personality, if not Gundam. But yeah, I think I saw it as a kid because I definitely remember the Tallgeese. I think the one episode I saw for the longest time was when Zex Marquis flew the Tallgeese for the first time and it almost killed him. And so instead, the what was it? The grunt whose name I definitely do not remember tried flying it to complete whatever mission they were doing and ended up dying. Okay. These two pieces aren't wanting to go together. There they go. And now I need to get clear piece. This clear piece. Where'd my nippers go? Sorry. Okay. That piece just broke off. Now, the thing about Tanami is probably where I also saw Double O. I know Double O was the one that I went back and actually watched everything out first. Hey, Radiant. Yeah. Zex Marquis kills me, though, because like he starts getting to a point where he's like, aha, I'm Miliardo Peacecraft. I'm a pacifist. You can't kill me. And then they're like, well, we're going to kill you anyways. And he's like, haha, I'm Zex Marquis. Now I can kill you. And it's like, seriously, what is this? What is this dialogue that's happening right now? Yeah, so we are, I don't even know how far, 2 hours and 18 minutes into the stream. And one of the reasons we're that far and all we've built is Ariel's head is because first we stopped to build this. Because for some reason I thought, oh, the flight unit will only take like 5 minutes to build. You know, it's this. It's not that complicated. No, it took almost 2 hours just to make this. And, you know, then the rest of the time has been me talking and losing my train of thought and then just, you know. Okay, so I need B and C and lots of C. Oh no, don't worry about that, you know. 7 o'clock on Thursday is a very weird time to stream at all, period, unless, you know, you're someone who has, you know, lots of followers. But if you give me 5 seconds, I am going to run to the bathroom and then I'll be right back. Okay, I am back. Oh, t- well, while both you and Vagabond are here, since I think you're probably the two people I most nerd out with about Gundam on Blue Sky. Uh, remember when I was like doing that poll of, hey, what Gundam are Gundam mecha do people think I'd probably be like, which one would suit me the most? Uh, Someone said the Gundam Lefreath, the purple base unit of the Aerial. And I kind of got to thinking, what if the Aerial had like the Strike Noir's wings and backpack, and then like some sort of melee weapon? I think like a sword would. I think like specifically one of the Exia's bigger GN swords would be like a really good piece for to kind of complete that kind of custom. So now that idea is in my head, but I need to get a Lefreath, and then I need to get a Strike Noir. Then I need to get the Exia extra swords, which I think you can only get from bootleggers. I had a really good idea, and it's just like, oh, but you gotta do all this extra stuff to get it. uh, Probably reminds me I need to check to see if the Strike Noir is part of those reprints dropping, in August, because that would be a get the double O full sword. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, like the one that comes with the yeah, I know which one you're talking about. Ooh, that'd be a big sword. But yeah, it fit, and the green sword would actually, because I want to paint it up like the Love Phantom colors too. So the green sword would actually be good for that. That very violent magenta. I say violent. It's the same magenta as the all the justices and the Aegis. Actually, no, that's not true. The ju- justice at the towards the end of Destiny was actually just a pure red. Where was I? Yeah, I'm still here. C23. C23. Oh. C23, 23, 23. There you are. Now, I like how when I started this stream, I was really good about doing the double cutting, and I even got my 999 pairs of clippers. This is for the first cut. These nice softer ones are for the second cut. Somewhere I just went like, no. Boop. That reminds me, I need to do the second game of Wolfenstein eventually. I ended up doing what was it? That one sequel prequel, Old Blood, I think, where you're back in World War II. That was actually kind of fun. It was short. I didn't like the end of the game. Oh, that's no problem. Go get your phone charged. Have a good night. All right, how do you go together? You go together like so. Yes? Yes. And I still need to get rid of that little nut there. Yeah, have a good night, Radiant. Yeah. Thank you, and have a good night. Thanks for stopping by. Let's see. I need this piece now. C28. That's this big nightmare here. C28 and C32. 32. It's this piece over here. I think this is the first time I've gotten like 2 hours and change of streaming and just went, yeah, let's keep going. Normally at this point I'm just about ready to call it a day. I keep start. Yeah, I mean I think Radiant saw where you said hi and everything, but yeah, his phone's dying. Probably need to one day make a Discord. Okay, do those go? I like how it says choose a sticker, but there's only the one sticker. Okay, so I think they go on this side and not that side because there's that little eye. I'm sorry, get bit by wildlife? Going to the dryer? Is it like a apartment building where the dryer's in, a separate building or something? course, I say that, and, you know, last time I lived in Florida, I had to worry about wildlife just, you know, getting into the garage or onto the back porch. It's about saying that was living in the middle of a city, but Sebastian ain't really a city. Ah, okay. A little dumpster friend. Yeah, no, I get that. Every time I take the trash out, I worry because there's a colony of cats. Not really worried about those because, you know, they avoid everyone except for the one older lady who always makes sure to give them food, but she's on the other side of the building. They avoid everyone else. And I think other tenants have been calling animal control because I haven't exactly seen a lot of the feral cats as I used to. At least I hope they're getting picked up and not like killed off because I have seen where people here unfortunately unalived one of the cats. But in addition to the cats, I know there's also a possum. I was about to try to force that in all the wrong ways. Possum I don't trust as much as the cats. Which is ironic when you look at my profile picture and it's a possum. Let's see. Oh, wait. No, okay. So I did that, and then I need to do this one like so. Yeah. Come on, just straighten up. There we go. Okay, I don't know why I was worried about doing the stickers first when that's the completely other side. So I need A9 and A8. You know, I'm just kind of realizing how pastel this blue is. It's not bad, but it's certainly different. I forget. Have I talked to you yet about the announcement for a new Universal Century movie? What the hell? Sorry. Thought I saw something. Yeah, Silver Phantom. It's supposed to be like taking place in the same year as Unicorn, but I don't know if they've said yet if it's supposed to be like before, during, or a little bit after. Just kind of seems like they've gone, you know, let's cram as much stuff into the same place as possible. Yeah, no, when I saw that, I had to sit there and go back and check the timelines because I was like, oh, okay, isn't that the like the same time as uh, Unicorn and Narrative and Hathaway's Flash, and sounds like, oh no, Hathaway's Flash is like, 10 years after Unicorn, but it is the same time as Unicorn, or at least the same year. UC 96, Narrative was 97. Kind of hard to believe that because, like, watching a Narrative, it kind of gives the impression that it happens so much later than Unicorn. It's like, no, it's literally only a year later, if that. I think it's kind of interesting how they're going back and trying to, add more complexity, I guess, to the political spectrum. Because, like, this is supposed to be a group unaffiliated with, Earth Central or Xeon, but, the plot apparently still revolves around Xeon. Yeah, it is nice to see more than the 1 year war. I think I, I think my problem with more 1 year war stuff is like, yeah, on the one hand it's a huge event that has a lot more story to it than what we saw in the anime, but the problem is they when they want to add stuff to it, they keep trying to add more universe shaping events, if that makes sense. And so it comes across as like trying to cram an unnecessary amount of stuff into the same space. And it's kind of like a Star Wars the expanded universe in that sense, where there's just an unnecessary amount of stuff happening, but somehow it all contained like the same five people. And while on the one hand, they're not focusing around the same five people, they're still having these huge uh, events that should be defining to the 1 year war, but they're kind of not. Or they're I'm not sure how to properly put it. I'm probably screwing my whole train of thought up. I don't know. Like, I think one of the things I liked about Iron Blooded Orphans and Witch from Mercury was the fact that, like, we saw only like a small portion of things compared to the whole universe. Like, we saw almost nothing of Iron Blooded Orphans. Like, we didn't even see most of Mars. We definitely didn't even see a whole lot of Earth. And but in the only groups that we saw other than Tekkadan were Tewaz, Gallarhorn, and the I think they were called the Brewers. Those pirates we saw in season 1. But there was that huge impression that there's still a whole lot more you can see and build and play with. And most Gundam series are kind of like more about doing broad strokes. So you end up seeing a very small amount doing huge defining events for everyone else, but Iron Blood Orphans actually wasn't that until the very end, and it was kind of a similar thing with Witch from Mercury, which I think everyone's pretty much of the opinion that the only reason it happened in Witch from Mercury was because higher ups were like, oh, it's got to be more epic than, a high school drama. Which is why then in Witch from Mercury, the overall bigger world plot just ended up coming across so half-assed. I haven't been keeping up with it. That's the one with the GU. That's kind of a prequel, right? I think what is it? Vanidus Heart. I think I read the first three chapters, but first three chapters was like beginning of this year. Because I need to go back and read it and then see if Ironblood Gecko has got any more chapters. Hey Pinker, welcome to the stream. We got some Gundam plastic going on. So far, we've built this backpack and a head, and now we're working on the chest. And we're just kind of talking, whatever happens. How does this go on? How do you go like that? Yes. All right. So number 2 is this piece. This. Yeah. I think that's what I meant by prequel is how it happened. Yeah, I mean, like, I think the show. Okay, it didn't do a good job explaining things, but that's because, again, I think, like, I'm definitely in agreement with everyone else where the sudden explosion of plot importance was, it definitely comes across as more forced than something the writers wanted. But, I think it did an okay job giving bare bones enough that you could see how things ended up. But I'm definitely all more for a more coherent story for that, you know. And I think I think Vanda's heart probably comes across more important because if I remember right, the main character has like an artificial heart that's supposed to be built from the gun technology, right? And that's how he suits up with his Gundam. And I feel like that matters because you get told about how the Gundam technology was supposed to be medical technology, but then the corporation screwed it up because they just wanted weaponry, and then because it just wasn't meant to be weaponry, everyone else was like, "Ah, it's witchcraft." Okay. How do you... What is this supposed to look like when it's done? Okay, it's supposed to look like that. Oops. Is that it? Is that how we got it? And to be fair, Pinker, Gundam Wing is a very good Gundam to be the only one to know anything about. Yeah, I hope I'm providing good vibes. I just need to. Is that how that's supposed to go? Okay. I mean, that looks right. It just doesn't look right, you know? Alright. Let's go ahead and try and move on. We need this piece. B237. Feel like I'm calling out bingo numbers. Okay, and that's this piece right here. Yeah, I think that's. I mean, to be fair, that is any Gundam series in a nutshell, basically. I think Gundam Wing probably actually had the least amount of teenage drama, which I feel like is saying something. Because I just finished watching Gundam Seed Destiny and Gundam Seed Freedom, and they both try to introduce this teenage boy who's like, oh, I need to kill everyone to prove I'm the best. And it's just like, and that's the hero of this show? You know, meanwhile, you get a teenage clown duo, and then you get oh crap, I can't remember the rest of their names. Then you get 3 emo boys and the rich kid. Hero, Troy, I forget the other emo boy's name, and the rich kid whose name I forget. And then somewhere you have Melina, the rich kid that Hero's like, I will murder you for having a crush on me. And then she's just like, yandere, I want a date. Which probably gets more ironic and more hilarious since, you know, she's a pacifist. And she's like, yes, let's date the murder boy who threatened to kill me. There we go. That's a nice snug fit. Didn't even... Yeah. Those went together real nice and barely even felt them. Alright, these clear pieces are next. You know, I don't think I'm against the clear pieces, but they're definitely a very interesting choice to do what they chose to do. Okay, and I need pieces 19 and 20. Because I think like the Schwartz set was the first one I built with the pieces, and you know, they're pretty cool. Hero Duo, yeah, Troa was the one who worked in a circus. Quattro was the rich kid, and Wufei was the other emo boy. There was so much emo angst in Gundam Wing. Oh crap! Where did that go? Oh crap, I wasn't paying attention, and I don't know where that piece went. Oh, here it is. Fell right in my lap. Got lucky on that one. Yeah, and then there was Melina Peacecraft. And then there was her brother, Zex Marquis, who is also known as Miliardo Peacecraft. And then he had his murder girlfriend. 90s misogyny incarnate, yeah. Yeah, Gundam has a I feel like at first it was like, oh, okay, it just felt like it'd be easier to market giant robots to teenage boys, but then somewhere they just leaned into the hardcore, okay, every teenage boy needs to be a child soldier for the life experience. Because, like, you get those five, and then you get Gundam 00, where Setsuna got his start as a child soldier in Kurdistan. And then what is it? Turn A Gundam. You had oh crap, what was his name? He was a child soldier too, raised on the moon and then sent to Earth as a sleeper agent. Then just a lot of the other Gundams just have, teenagers as the main focus. Which, I mean, again, helps you relate to your target demographic. Lauren, yeah. Lauren, who I think the funniest moment was when he decides to create an alter ego that's, him pretending to be a woman. The only bad part about that storyline was the guy who's just like, oh, you're a woman anyways. And it's like, okay, please stop misgendering the main character when you know they're not a woman. Sorry, I'm suddenly just really focusing on this little clear piece. Yeah, who was it? Maggie from Gundam Build Divers. Like, I think I've said this before, but I think Maggie's really interesting because, I mean, at the start, unfortunately, Maggie is, representative of that very problematic trope in Japanese anime where, they want to show trans women as being basically overly muscled masculine men who just happen to be wearing women's clothing. But then in a lot of the official translation stuff, like the official American Gundam website, Maggie is given they them pronouns, not he him. I found out that the way Maggie speaks Japanese is I'd have to look up the proper term. I think it translates as like big sister talk, and it's supposed to be a way of how drag queens but also trans women speak Japanese. So, like, everything about Maggie is Maggie should be either non-binary or, a trans woman. And that just makes Maggie cooler, in my opinion. Even if, unfortunately, they do some very problematic trope stuff in showing off Maggie in the first appearance in Build Divers. go here. That's Alright, I'm getting distracted. That's annoying. I mean, in my experience, it's probably going to be no, because unfortunately, it's just a unfortunate stereotype. A lot of anime just wants to do trans women wrong unless it's something that's focused specifically on LGBTQ plus representation, because otherwise everything just seems like oh, we're trying to sell it to cisgender teenage boy audience, so we need fan service, and that means when we do have the representation, we either hypersexualize it or we make it a problem, like the gay guy in Gurren Lagann. They make everyone see him as extra creepy, even though he never really does a damn thing to anybody. So I mean, it's probably 50-50 on whether or not it's done right completely 100%. Sometimes it's just sort of done right, but I feel like you can see where the studio is like, haha, let's make a problem instead of, a good thing. Which isn't necessarily always the fault of the writers. Oh, no, that's something. Ended up having a discussion yesterday, I think it was, about Muslim representation in Gundam, because where I watched Seed Freedom, the subtitles kept translating the Orb Union as the United Orb Emirates, which, emirate is a way of referring to sort of like a Muslim principality, a Muslim nation, Muslim sovereignty, I guess would be the best way to describe that. And, the Orb Union is like way deep in the Pacific Ocean. It's specifically supposed to be just east of the New Guinea Islands. So, that was kind of interesting because on the one hand, I got to learn that, in the chain of, oh crap, chain of, hold on. In the Indonesian islands, there's actually a huge Muslim population in real life. But, turns out the Orb Union isn't Muslim, but, it's interesting. I think it's interesting that they chose to translate it that way, but I don't know if that's like a fan dub or if it's the official fan translation of the subtitles or if it's an official subtitle. Okay, how did I... But, it's interesting that someone chose to translate it that way either way. But I got reminded that, Setsuna being Kurdish, he would have most likely have been Muslim, even if he wasn't straight out described as such. And then in Wing, you had Quatra and the Magnet Corps, who were all Muslim. Then I can't remember. I think someone said there might have been more Muslim representation, but it's very circumstantial in one of the other Gundam series, but I can't remember which one off the top of my head. It's a Berber. I am not familiar with that term. Let me look it up real fast. I'm not going to lie. I am not the most socially and culturally read up person. Part of that is my upbringing, but I have been trying to expand it. Okay. Oh, it's a group of ethnic. It's a grouping of distinct ethnic groups indigenous to North Africa that predate the arrival of Arabs to North Africa. Okay. Okay, so that explains, how he knew the magnet cores to begin with. Okay. Yeah, I remember, they're kind of like his own personal army anyways, but I don't think I ever had the knowing to figure out, to think about how he would have known them anyways. Because if I remember right, I think they said they all knew his father and were sworn to him, but they also have known him since he was little, so, I think they called him Prince. So I got that piece, and so now I need those two pieces here. Okay, but that's cool to know. Sorry, that was the that was the last of my water. Yeah, boy, they made okay, no, those aren't tabs, so I hope I just did not make a very big mistake. I'm laughing now because I remember how Quattro was the one who first piloted the Epion, the dragon mech. Poor guy, that was not a mech meant for you. To go. Okay, and I need you. Yeah, I think anime specifically is one of those weird things where, it's kind of like Western media where, it's very the themes it represents are very relevant to Japanese culture, but people make the assumption that because oh, Japan is foreign to Western culture, it must naturally be better or more, you know, international in its representation. And anime is very often a thing that shows like, no, not necessarily. There are points where it definitely does, and it has the freedom that I think a lot of Western media doesn't have in being able to do good representation. But it still has the problem where it's like not necessarily. You know, 14 years ago, when I was just graduating high school, I would have been the wrong person to talk to about the necessity of, any kind of representation. I like to hope I've grown since then, but I don't really have a good metric to go by. Just hopes and prayers. Hopes, prayers, and that I know a lot of the things that are wrong. May not know everything that's right, but I know a lot of what is wrong and what not to do. Oh, still got that tiny little tab on this one that's supposed to be gone. Alright, so you go like that. Going to let gravity hold you for about 5 hot seconds. Yeah, there we go. Ta-da! We have the chest. And that's the first page. We're 3 hours in. Oh boy. Oh boy. Alright. Move stuff out of the way so I can turn the page. Sorry. Try not to sing random country songs anymore. Oh boy, and that's building the arms. I think honestly I'm starting to get worn out, so I might I think that might be a good place to call it, where we have, head, the couple of hands, and the the backpack. I think we'll go ahead and call it there. And, yeah, we'll go ahead and call it there. So, I, I'm glad we got as far as it did. It took way longer than I planned on it to because that backpack just took way longer than I thought it would. But, you know, thank you everyone for joining me. Pinker, Vagabond, thank you for the follows. And thank you, Tin Cat and Radiant, for having, uh, joined in earlier. Yeah, I will definitely be hydrating. I just need to refill my water. But yeah, so thank you everyone for joining in. I hope you had a good time. I hope you enjoyed the vibes and the conversation. And I hope you all have a good night. I am not sure when I will stream again, but I will definitely be trying to. And we will finish up the Gundam Aerial. All right. So thank you, everyone, and have a good night. And stay safe, and the everything that is happening right now. All right. Have a good night, everyone.